Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. All right, everybody, just a little bit of patience with me. We are going old school today. As you can see, I am not on the lifeboat proper, and there's a reason for that. It's kind of a bit of a bummer too, but I'll tell you that in a second. Unfortunately, Mr. Mark Wages is in the hospital. He's having some problems. It's just some things going on, and his blood pressure was quite high, people. So if you could keep him positive thoughts, prayers, whatever it is that you do for Mark. Pretty concerned about him. Honestly, I am. This is I don't know. It was really high. Yeah, Wages. Thank you, Oculi. I appreciate that. He's I don't want to misquote this because it's important that when you start talking about things like that you don't screw it up. But it was high. I believe the top number was 225. So it was really a high number. And the crazy thing is, Mark being Mark, I get a text message from him that says, "Boy, I'm really sorry that I can't be on the live feed." I'm not laughing at his condition, people, because it's not funny, but it's just his reaction to it was, I said to him, "Really? That's where you're going with this?" And his dedication to everybody here. Jamie Watson, good to see you. Pamela, good to see you. Miss V, the Seventh Son. I think I saw Saigon Cinnamon. Great to see you. Oculi Mortis, always a pleasure. The Seventh Son, I got a 5x5, so that is good. Appreciate that. People, thoughts and prayers once again with Mark. Mine this morning. Oh, no way. Oculi, that's not good. It's probably good that you monitor it. I do that. It's a habit I got into a really long time ago. Let me see if I can get my live chat up here so that I do a little bit less scrolling. Oh, there we go. So I'm not going to have the normal screens that we put up that give you a load of disclaimers. So I will just do a little bit of that. If you're in a really bad place and you're thinking about hurting yourself or doing anything like that, people, pop onto any of our other videos, and there are some toll-free numbers there that you can reach out for help. There are places that we've got numbers up that you can reach out to. If you're in a place like that, you know what? The Lifeboat is a support group. I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I don't play one on YouTube. I'm an ex-convict. I'm a recovering heroin addict, and I come here to bring up subject matter that we can all talk about, and hopefully helps us concentrate on issues that are germane to staying sober. But more than anything else, the Lifeboat is a support group where people come together and are here for one another to get through sobriety and the process of sobriety. Not just getting sober, putting down the bottle, but or the drug. Oculi says, "I have to take it every day. I have a prescription, but I'm afraid to take it." You know what? I went through some really weird stuff, OM. There was a period of time where I was, my blood pressure's never been that high, but it's always been just a little bit north of what they would like to see it at. And I went through a period of time where they had me on everything under the sun. I rotated through all of these different medications, and I'll be honest, man, the side effects, just for me, I'm not a doctor. I just finished saying that, but just for me personally, the side effects were, every one of them was horrible. One dried my mouth out so bad that it was awful. CT555 says, "I don't understand why some people want their problems to be easy. I want my problems to be hard. The harder the problem, the stronger I get." You know what? It's there is definitely a school of thought that says that which does not kill you makes you stronger. It's regardless of the size of the problem. It's how you deal with it, right? So it's what how you're able to get yourself to allow yourself to feel about any particular situation. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today on the lifeboat. This is a subject matter that is it's sort of along the lines of things that we've talked about in the past, but it's a little bit different. When we start to look at the human mind and how the human mind works, it really is more than anything else. It's a replay of our emotional states, things that have happened to us in the past. Our EQ really starts to drive everything that happens in our brain. And some of the science now that's coming out about our EQ as opposed to our IQ. Alan Ballantyne, excellent to see you, my friend. Arizona Raven, really good to see you. There's some science that's coming out right now where they talk about the analytical mind and how basically it is the go-between, and in many ways almost the referee. Jacob Forrester, always a pleasure. It's sort of the go-between between your conscious and your unconscious mind. You have the analytical mind. Unfortunately, what happens to so many people, Pamela, great to see you. What happens to so many people is that we basically become a conglomeration of all of the different memories that we have had over the years. I'm sorry, okay, so I was just checking there real quick, sorry. So what ends up happening is as things happen to us and we experience trauma, the more that something in our lives is really, really affects us, the more that the emotional state is at its absolute heightened, that is directly tied to our memory. The more emotional something that happens to you is, the greater the memory and the imprint that memory makes, right? And what ends up happening is there's a period of time once that memory kicks in, right? In science, they call it the refractory period. So something happens and it affects you emotionally. How long it takes you to process that and move on is the refractory period. And for some people, the refractory period ends up being so long that we get addicted, literally. We get dependent on certain emotions. And then what we do is we go through life and we seek out things that are going to validate that addiction to each emotion. So if if you become addicted to hate, you find people that you can't stand and you use them as a way to justify that. If you get addicted to being needy, or if you get addicted to love, or you get addicted to all of these different emotions, and they really become the way that you get addicted to these and the way that they start to take over your life, and maybe that's a better way to look at it, is the way that they start to take over your life is you lose your perspective. And what happens is the body, all of it, becomes dependent on your EQ, not your IQ. So, and what ends up happening is, at first you talk about someone who says, you know what, I crashed a car this morning. I had a flat tire, went off of the road and did a lot of damage to the front end of my car. I'm in a bad mood. Okay, that's normal. That happens to everybody. That is the refractory period of what just happened. But how long does that refractory period last? If 4 days later, you are still having a problem because of the tire that caused the accident, and you're still in that refractory period, we're getting into the realm of unhealthy. Well, if 9 months later, you're still reeling over the accident that you happened, and obviously this can happen with things that are far more traumatic, right? The bigger the trauma, the longer the refractory period is for most individuals. But that mood can sling into a temperament. If you have this long enough, sounds like a recipe for codependency when people focus emotional addiction on a person. Absolutely, it can be a recipe for that. But what ends up happening is you go past mood and into temperament, right? Whether you're bitter or angry, you ever meet those people and you just say, that guy's bitter. Very oftentimes what you're seeing is the imprint of memories that happened so long ago that these people never, ever got off of. It really becomes one of those situations that all of these things begin to stack up. Full of hope, great to see you. All of these things begin to stack up and you begin to develop a pattern where the refractory period off of each traumatic event that happens to you becomes longer and longer and longer. And your body and your subconscious mind and everything that makes up who you are begins to actually seek out anything that it can find to create the same feeling, because stepping outside of that feeling becomes very, very uncomfortable, right? If you step into the river of the unknown, then what you end up with is a feeling that is so foreign and so uncomfortable that you immediately go back to your default setting, whatever that is. You'd rather be unhappy because at least it's normal to you. One of the reasons that change is so hard for so many people, one of the reasons that the average, I don't know if you heard that noise, that was weird. An alarm just went off outside. One of the reasons that New Year's resolutions last 5 days is because most people decide, okay, here's what I'm going to change, but they don't change anything other than the decision. So many times I talk about how it's essential that you change the things that you do every single day. If you go back and you hang out with the same people and you do the same things, what you really need to think about the brain as, very oftentimes, think about it like a computer, right? There's input, and we do the same things over and over and over again. You go to work every single day and you commute, and the hours of 8:30 to 9:30 are spent in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the freeway, cursing and being angry. Very oftentimes an individual finds themselves on their day off, and from 8:30 to 9:30, their pulse is elevated. They have actual physical symptoms of the programming that they live on a day-to-day basis. Now, that's an extreme example of this, but these are the kind of things that take that mood and move it into temperament. And if this is something that goes on for 25 years, then that temperament and that mood all of a sudden become a personality. When you meet people who are just I'm sorry, I got a squirrel for 1 second. Lisinopril. I've had problems with that. Oculi. That was one of the medications that really, really gave me a struggle. Was Lisinopril. Just thought I would weigh in on that. Really gave me a struggle. When we go through trauma, and when we go through things that really are a struggle for us, we have stress hormones. You've heard people talk about cortisol. It's one that gets a lot of ink. People write a lot about cortisol, but there are a bunch of different stress hormones that the body actually starts to let out into the system during times of stress. You can become so accustomed to operating with those stress hormones coursing through you that we will go back to things that are unhappy because at least it's something that we can understand. By getting up and saying, from here on out, everything I'm going to do different, it is a difficult thing. Oh, don't tell me Charlie likes Vegemite. Lies. It becomes a very difficult thing for individuals to get outside of their comfort zone. This is one of the reasons, people, that quitting, whether you're quitting a habit or a drug or a chemical or any of those, this is what makes this just that much more difficult every time. So if you take this to its final conclusion, if you start really thinking about this and chasing it all the way down to the final conclusion, you end up with the concept of, does your thinking create your environment? Or does your environment create your thinking? You've probably heard gurus. You've probably heard, the motivational speakers and people who do this for a living, who say things like affirmations and positive thoughts. You can literally create your reality. And I know that there are times that seems really heady, like almost like voodoo. But what you absolutely can do is you can create the reality of your emotional quotient. We spend so much of our lives living in the past. When you get up first thing in the morning, everything you're doing is tinted by the memories of your life. And if we live in the rearview mirror, we don't highlight the fantastic. We highlight the awful. The memories that are implanted on us, the strongest, the ones that have the largest influence on our life, are all tied to trauma. To get out of that and to move to a place where you are starting to concentrate on the positive, becomes the real question. And different gurus have different ideas for how this can take place. You hear a lot of people talk about meditation. You hear a lot of people talk about all of these different methods of reprogramming the mind, right? Learning to control your brain. So the question becomes, how does one do this? How do you get to a point where you can reprogram the mind? And science says that visualization is one of the greatest tools at our disposal, for conditioning the brain to be ready for something new. Great athletes talk about it all the time. You hear professional athletes talk about how they had walked up the 18th fairway so many times to win the Masters. They'd done it in their head since they were 13. Again and again and again, visualizing that. Michael Jordan used to talk all the time about how he would visualize games in his head. He would visualize taking the final shot, the winning shot. People, the science says this: if you really are good at this, if it's something that you really get good at controlling, that visualization, your brain can be tricked. You can brainwash yourself. Now, doesn't mean that you're going to manifest this into existence, although there are many people on this planet that believe that, right? The book The Secret talks very heavily about that, a very, very popular book I'm sure some of you have read. But what you can do is you can start conditioning your body to be comfortable with that feeling. You can condition your body to be comfortable with the feeling of success, as opposed to conditioning yourself like we normally do to be uncomfortable, to be so used to failure or so used to any of those things. Think about it. We decide that we're going to go out and we're going to attack the world, and this is it. We're going to stop doing whatever. We're going to stop drinking. We're going to stop drugging. We're going to start working harder, right? Cigarettes, whatever it is that we're trying to make a change of. And you start, the power of positive vibes is exactly right, Miss V. You start to get into that process, and then shortly after you start, you get that self-talk, and you get, Ma, you're just like you're just like your brother, or you're just like your dad, or all of these things that are going on in the head. And it is your body's way. It is the subconscious way of saying, I'm a lot more comfortable without this change. I am way more comfortable without this change. Let's get back to that stress hormone. Let's get back to all of the things that I am used to. And we find ourselves being terrified of the unknown. And the future, most assuredly, for all of us, is the unknown, especially if we're looking at a new future. Use me as an example. You spend 2 or 3 decades doing heroin every day. Well, if tomorrow is the day that all of that comes to a stop, well, then that first day was terrifying. That first day was looking at this and saying, I have to start an entire new life. It has to be brand new. And I did a lot of visualization. I read many books about this. I have held off on this topic for a long period of time. I've talked to some of you about it personally. It's a topic that for a lot of people sounds like mumbo jumbo. You know what I mean? It sounds almost like something, that is new age. Attitude, emotional direction. Attitude equals emotional direction. Jacob, it really is. It's and again, this is one of those things that I'm sorry. It's one of those things that some people, again, really embrace as a concept, but it is the visualization. What you have to do is train yourself to accept the feeling of being successful. You have to train yourself to accept what it is going to feel like to live your best life, because our default setting is not that. And what we want as human beings, we are conditioned to take what and accept what it is that we like. We fall back to what is comfortable. And even if that is pain, or even if that is failure, or even if that is fear. And this is the reason, people, that it's possible to have a panic attack for absolutely no reason. We become so accustomed to these emotions that we go through time and time again, and we run back to it, and we run back to it, and we run back to it. And we are literally just a compilation of all of the memories. Think about it in terms of circuitry. Each one of these experiences that we had created circuitry in the brain that hardwires us to accept defeat. It hardwires us to accept failure. And each time we say, well, this is it, man, I quit today. This is the day I'm not going to do drugs anymore. This is the day I am not going to drink anymore. And then it doesn't work out, right? We relapse. And instead of dusting ourselves off and starting again, we say, screw it. And we go back to doing what we do. Another piece of hardwire, another piece of circuitry gets laid down in the brain. And we are reinforcing that negative thought, that negative conversation that takes place in the brain where we say, we can't do this. We're laying big, thick, gnarly cables in there that convince us that this is not something that we can do. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to start to break out of this. Now, one of the things that people really hammer home is that one of the ways to do this, and one of the best ways to do this, is through meditation. And there are a lot of people who have, very serious beliefs one way or another when it comes to meditation. It can be one of those things that, for some, they feel like it interferes with whatever their religion is. And I don't think for a second that needs to be the case. In the Bible, the term meditation comes up constantly. It really does. You can, if that's something that's a hang-up for you. For some people, it is very difficult just to be able to put your brain to sleep for any length of time. So, what I would like to recommend, because I think that this is a great place to start, putting your brain to sleep for a brief period of time. You don't have to try to sit down and clear the mind completely like you hear about meditation when people talk in books. But think about this for a second. What do you do first thing in the morning when you get up? Every single morning, the first thing you do, and I don't mean make your bed, I don't mean brush your teeth, right? Whatever you have as your little routine, right? After that, the first thing that we do is what? We pick up our phones, right? You pick up your phone and you check to see Facebook, right? You check to see Instagram, you check to see YouTube, you check all of these little things that we have that are going to pump info into your body, right? Instantly, first thing in the morning. And that is going to give you connectivity, as far as you're concerned, with the real world, right? All of these different points of contact. Well, is that the way to start the world for us? Is that the way we want to start every day of our life? By plugging in to the negative hate box, that is our smartphone or our laptop or our computer or whatever the case may be, checking all of the different apps that we have that tie us into social media. So all I would say is this: every morning, take 30 minutes and turn it off. You don't have to turn it off for the whole day. You don't have to give up on social media, none of these things. Take 30 minutes every morning and pretend it's like an animal, right? Your brain. Treat it like a dog for 30 minutes. Stay, right? Stay. Don't move. Don't move. For 30 minutes, don't pick up the phone. Don't check anything. And spend 30 minutes visualizing your best life. Not in the future, today. Studies have been done that are saying our brain is not awesome. In fact, it's not even proficient at looking at things in the future. You hear gurus, right? People who do speeches on positive thought and people who do life coaching and things of that. When they talk about mantras, they say, talk about it as if it has already happened. If you've learned anything from what I've said so far, it's that our brain is hardwired to hold on really tight to memories. And then those memories shape our lives. So when you start talking about things in the future, oculi mortis, I love you, my brother. Bottom line, I love you. I really do. I'm glad that you're here. It's a pleasure to look out onto the deck and see you. You and I go back a long time, and you mean a lot to me. That's the truth. Sorry, people, but I just saw a comment that I wanted to comment on. And I'm a squirrel. I've got priors. I squirrel. And sometimes you see something that is just so squirrel worthy that you just gotta say something about it, right? So I love you, OM. Thank you for being a stand-up cat. It means a lot to me. But if you take, there are the squirrels. I knew they were coming. If you take 30 minutes each morning to visualize your best self, and don't do it in the future. So just food for thought. If you have a 2-year-old boy, right, or a 2-year-old girl, and they're in the room and you say, don't touch the phone. Do not touch the phone. What is that child going to do? Guaranteed. They're going to touch the phone. Because what they get out of that is touch phone. They're not processing the do not. They're not processing. They're getting phone, right? Touch. Our brain, it's exactly what they're going to do. Thank you, Linda. It's exactly what they're going to do. Our brain is the same way. Doesn't matter how old you are. You be 70. Our brain is conditioned for the now, for this exact moment. What does that mean regarding being a squirrel? It came from a cartoon where there was a dog in the middle of a conversation, and then just like I'm doing right now, and they go squirrel, because instantly their mind and their eye goes to whatever is there, and it makes them stop what they're doing. And I have priors for this, right? I'll be in the middle of a conversation and I'm talking about something like whatever the subject matter is, and then I get distracted very easily like a dog when he sees a squirrel. So it started as a joke probably about 4 weeks ago, maybe even longer than that. But I have squirrel tendencies. So especially when the producer of this show, Mark, is not here, because not only is my camera have things that are scrolling up, but I have another screen over here that has things that are scrolling up, and I have the potential to squirrel. And it's just, no, you didn't cause that. I caused that, OM. That is what I do. It is, you have that bad. You know what? We all have it bad. But you're not sitting in front of a camera when you do it. It's a little bit more glaring when the host does that squirrel thing. You know what I mean? No, that wasn't you, OM. That was all me. So I'm going to get back onto the subject matter. I know that you find that hard to believe, but I'm going to. So we have found that the brain is not very good at trying to do things in the future. This is why when somebody says on January the 1st, I'm going to quit eating chocolate. I'm going to quit eating chocolate. I'm never going to eat chocolate again. What they say is, these are the gurus, these are the mind coaches, these are the life coaches. What they say is, the correct way to do that in your visualization is, I am healthy, I do not eat chocolate. Not, I'm not going to. Think of it in the past tense. We have already established here that our EQ, our emotional quotient, grabs onto memories and the emotions of those memories. So what we're trying to do in this 30 minutes that we're dedicating to getting the heck rid of our phone and anything else that plugs us in, what we're trying to do during that time is to get ourselves accustomed to feelings that we have not felt before, like success, right? Like sobriety, like all of the things that are essential if you're just now starting to try to live your best life. It's really funny. I've had people on here before who have said, from the day that I quit, I never even looked back. I never had a relapse. I never had a feeling of it. And almost always they'll say, I feel guilty because I hear everybody else. They always had two things in common. Every time that people would say, I just started thinking of myself as not being a drinker. Well, that's really exactly what we're talking about. As opposed to, I'm going to quit doing this. I am strong. I don't drink. It's in the now. It's in the present, right? Right now. We're not talking about some future event that is a theory, right? Or something that down the road just might happen. It's like when people say live as if, right? But instantly, I am healthy. I am strong. I am in control of my mind. I don't drink. I am healthy. I am happy. I am living my best life. I don't do drugs. Not, I'm going to quit. It sounds like I'm splitting hairs, people, but your brain needs you to, because we are excellent at processing everything from our past. We're not worth a boom when it comes to processing things in the future. Do you understand the difference? This is why gurus always say things like, it has to be now. You have to already talk about it. I am successful. I am, not I'm gonna be. That gonna be is not something that your brain can handle, truthfully. So during that 30 minutes, be doing self-talk and do it in the present. So during that 30 minutes that you have unplugged, and by the way, get rid of the sound. Don't let anything come into your senses. Because when you're trying to reprogram the brain, the senses aren't worth, you don't want them involved, right? So if you happen to be cooking pizza while you're doing this, not a great time to do it. Because the smell of the pizza is going to do things to your brain that is going to short circuit what you're trying to do. For 30 minutes in the morning, you put on a little bit of music, preferably without lyrics, because the lyrics, your brain will process the words, right? Here we go again. You'll be like, here we go again. No good. Now, you can put music on that's just sound. Now, why would you do that? Because it's going to block any other sound. It's going to block anything else that's coming in. So you just want to sort of get rid of that, close off that part of the brain, put a little soft music on, and for 30 minutes, don't do anything. Yes, there you go. Not worth a plug nickel. Well done, Linda. For that 30 minutes, not being connected to anything other than your own mind. And start to visualize. Now, why do you sit there and say, I'm already successful and I'm already this? Because like we've said in the past, our brain isn't connected the way you think it is. Really odd stuff happens in the brain. Why is it that when we get into an argument with our boss, we go, our brain can't distinguish what's happening. When that starts, that you get that, that feeling, and you start breathing hard and shallow, and all of the things that happen, they're identical to the brain to a fist fight. And we've been hardwired since the beginning of man for what? Protection. Do you understand the significance of that? When you have a traumatic event in your life, the memory is imprinted on you like no other. Why? Because your brain wants to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Do you understand? You have a traumatic event that happens in your life. Your brain wants to protect you from that ever happening again. So it imprints that in your memory like nothing else. Unfortunately, if you don't sort of get this under control, you will relive that event every single day of your life in your emotions. And you say, oh no, this was awful, but I haven't thought about that in years. Yeah, you might not have thought about it in years, but the emotional imprint of it is something that sticks with us forever. Now, there are people who will go and take the watch and go back and forth. Listen to the sound of my voice. Now I want you to close your eyes, and we're going back. Hypnotism works for some people. It is a realistic way for some people to try to deal with these tough emotional things from the past. But I always viewed it, and a lot of scientists do as well, it's where I got it from, but view it like a negative bank account. Well, you can try to figure out exactly why that there's a negative balance and how everything happened, or you could just put $100 in it, right? Wipe out the negative balance and start with a new one. This is why we talk about connections, points of contact, and creating new memories. It's the same principle, only this time we're going to do it before they happen. Because what we want to do is condition our brain. We want to condition our brain to not concentrate on the emotions that we're struggling with from traumatic events that happened in our life 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever the case may be. You can become addicted to all of that negativity. And I realize, people, addiction isn't the greatest way to put it, but you understand what I'm saying, correct? What happens is you become so conditioned that you're so used to that. Hi, Brandon. You become so conditioned to that negativity in your life that you seek it out. You destroy things that are good because you're so used to that feeling that you will go by. Guided chemical journeys are increasingly being used with PTSD. I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're right. There are a lot of different places right now that are using all kinds of different chemicals as a way to treat people with post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't know enough about it. I know that the literature on it, what he's talking about, people are in some cases really heavy hallucinogenics, and they're in a very controlled environment, like not go home and eat some acid kind of thing, but in a very controlled environment, giving people large amounts of hallucinogens to work through some of the trauma from people's past. And they've been having a good deal of success with it. However, here, that might be tough because, once again, it's not somebody buying a bag of mushrooms and seeing if they can fix their problems. He nailed it on the head with what he said, which is guided. And there are people there to ensure that this is a good situation and to make sure that it's very, very much controlled. MDMA, most assuredly, is another substance that has been used, which, street name ecstasy. There's been a ton of science done on that as well. However, since for most of us going through a guided kind of experience to work on that, that's going to be a difficult possibility. Oh, hold on a second. That's going to be difficult for most of us to pull off. So, I think the best case scenario is peyote is another one, no question, and there's a ton of other ones, right? A ton of other ones. What I am suggesting is a little bit safer, and it's also something that you can do without being guided. And what it is not necessarily only used for PTSD, but it is a way to train yourself to become accustomed to being successful. If you condition yourself to believe that you are going to be successful in business, then you can manifest yourself into that position. And there is a ton of science, believe it or not, people, that speaks to this. If you've never read the book, The Secret, it is a phenomenal book. And they interviewed all of these people and they talked to tons and tons of successful people who all do this on a daily basis. They visualize their success. They visualize this. There have been so many people where, when they come up and say, boy, after a great sporting event or after whatever, and they say, I would imagine that, it had to be, an amazing experience and this and that. And most of them said, I've done it 2,000 times. If you've ever seen really good skiers, Olympic class skiers at the top of a mountain before they do a downhill, every one of them, you will never see one of them that doesn't. They'll be at the top of the hill like this. Right? They're going through that entire course in their head. They're going through it. They're visualizing every single turn. They're doing these things prior to going down the hill. I skied moguls. And for us, it was probably even more necessary because we're talking about very, very fast speeds and very large moguls, big bumps that look like Volkswagen Beetles. And you're going 40 miles an hour through it and you got to do 2 aerials on the way down. And we would sit at the top and pick your line. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know how high I'm going to go on that. I know how low I'm going to go on that. And we would sit there and you close your eyes because your eyes are not going to work well with your brain. We've gone over this too. This is the reason, this is why meditation works for so many when it comes to this exact subject. We're closing off all of the senses because they're going to betray you. They're going to betray you. You're going to see something in the room and you're going to go, oh, it reminds me of Dad. I'm done. There's no way I'm visualizing anything now other than what my eyes just told me I'm going to visualize. So you close your eyes, right? You get rid of the sound and you start to... Oculi Mortis says, there was a reason the Native Americans smoked peyote. They also smoked and settled their differences. They even did it with the first settlers before the first Thanksgiving. There has been a lot of... through the years, there was a lot of cultures that did a lot of things that fell by the wayside. And we have, in many ways, people, I'm talking to you live from northern Nevada, and there are people all over the world that are listening to me, right? What we have done has been amazing. Technologically, we have taken light years in jumps. If you go back to just 100 years ago, we are just not the same culture. However, there are other parts of humanity that have gone in the opposite direction. There are so many cultures that came before us that had a much better hand on controlling the mind, had a much better grip on what it meant to control the brain. Where we are right now in our society, and I mean all of it. I don't just mean America. I mean as a world society. We have found ourselves in a bad place. We have found ourselves controlled by our emotions. We're not controlled by our thoughts. We're controlled by our emotions. And it makes sense if you think about it. Because by the time you're in your 30s, you have so much hardwired into your brain. Now, if you've been wildly successful that entire time, it is the truth. If you have been successful in your first 35 years, continuing to be successful is going to be quite easy. Because your brain literally seeks out that feeling, right? It goes and looks for that feeling of success, and it doesn't take anything other than that. Unfortunately, especially for those of us who are all in the same boat here, we went the opposite direction, right? We allowed our lives to be ruled by drugs, and in the process of it, forget all of you. Look at me. I robbed banks. I did the stupidest things that you can do. I lied to my family and friends. I blew 2 marriages. I was a terrible dad. I didn't do anything the way that I should have done it. And I hardwired myself to failure. It's a fact. So 6.5 years ago, when I decided to become a new creation, I had to visualize what that meant. And I don't mean years from now into the future. I would have to visualize what it meant to have somebody like me. It may sound crazy, right? But when you lived the life that I had led, you were not accustomed to people saying you're a good guy. And when they did, it made you ridiculously uncomfortable. We talk about it all the time in here. People will say, I really appreciate the fact that you're humble. I'm not humble. I mean, that's not what it is. It may come across that way. What it is I'm so uncomfortable with people saying you're doing a good job because I didn't hear that my entire life. I was very accustomed to people saying, you're blowing this. Good for you, Brandon. 8 days sober. Good for you, brother. That's awesome, people. You got to love that. You got to love that. For real. So I get the dream for this channel and I get it up and running, and I've had a ton of help from a ton of people. But every day I get emails that say, you're doing a great job, or, just whatever platitude, whatever really nice thing that people say. You have to become accustomed to hearing that. Because when you first hear it, it sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Not because you're a jerk, but because that's not what you're used to. And our brain seeks out what? Every time, right? The path of least resistance. That's what your brain's going to go to every single time. The path of least resistance. So if you are used to not doing well, you're going to short circuit success so that you at least feel normal. Hell, man, I would rather feel normal even if that means failing. Now, you wouldn't say that out loud. You wouldn't admit to that. But that's what your subconscious is doing. So like I said in the beginning, somewhere between your conscious and your subconscious lies your analytical mind, right? You picture subconscious, conscious, right? The two shall never meet. But in between those is the analytical mind. I've said so many times that when we start to rule with our emotion, what happens? Not a damn thing good. You want to make your decisions based on emotion? You're not going to make good decisions. You want to make decisions based on intellect. However, you've got this subconscious doing everything it can to make sure that you don't do it right, because that's going to make you uncomfortable. Remember your first day sober? Remember the first day that you said, that's it, I'm done? Were you comfortable? That entire day felt like you had your shoes on the wrong feet, right? You had your shirt on backwards. Anything else that you can think of that makes you uncomfortable, like your boxer shorts were lined with sandpaper. It is the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. Why? Because we're not used to it. It's not what we're used to. Our brain wants what it is used to. You say, that's crazy. It is? Why do you think that you sit as you're trying to get sober and your brain bombards you? Bombards you. You're 7 days out. right? You're not in physical withdrawal anymore. That's over. So why is your brain trying to get you to do the wrong thing? Why? Again and again and again and again and again. Why? Because we want the path of least resistance. We want what we have always had. We want what is normal. So we have to change the normal. We have to change what the brain desires. And there's only one way to do that, people. And that is to become successful enough that your brain starts to crave it. Now, how do you do that? Well, hopefully you can white knuckle, or you can do a better method. Your brain can't tell the difference between really serious memories and the event that caused that serious memory. In other words, have you ever sat down and thought about something really horrific that happened to you, and the next thing you know, your palms are sweating and your heart is racing and your blood pressure's through the roof? How's that possible? There's nothing going on in your environment to cause that, right? There is no external stimulation that is causing that to happen. That's all happening from inside. There is a person on this boat who described a medical procedure to me and looked like they were going to pass out as they were describing it. I'm not exaggerating. They looked like they were going to pass out. I had to go, hey, take a deep breath. I honestly had to go back and say, do you remember me talking about this on the boat? Look at what you're doing. You have derailed yourself. And I'm not putting this person on blast. I didn't say who it was. I had another individual who talked to me about somebody that they had been engaged to. And I had talked to this person ad nauseum about all kinds of things. But when this one subject matter came up, the breathing started to go. You could watch the facial expression. They went from one person to another person in 30 seconds. Because our brain can't distinguish between the event and the memory of the event. Truthfully, if you're in that moment, right? Boy, I was in the moment. If you're in that moment, your brain can't tell the difference. Now, we could sit and go like this and wring our hands and talk about how awful that is. Or you can realize that you can do the exact same thing to the brain in the opposite direction. You can sit and concentrate on things, on memories that haven't happened yet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Please, somebody understand what I'm saying? You can concentrate on memories that have yet to happen. This is what they talk about when they say manifesting it, making this happen, putting that out into the universe. Whatever it is that you want to, thank you very much, Swiss Vape. However you want to word it, what you're doing is creating the feeling. Now, if you do that a half an hour a day for a week, you will change your life. People say, it's crazy. Half hour a day for 7 days. For 30 minutes a day, disconnect every damn thing you own. Get rid of the sound, get rid of the sight, and concentrate not on what you're going to be, what you already are. I'm already successful. What is it in your life that's a stumbling block? I'm already healthy. The food I'm taking into my body is going to get me thin. I'm already there. I am already there. I am healthy. I will be my healthiest today. Your brain will begin to get accustomed to the feeling of what it feels like to be thin, to get accustomed to the feeling of being successful, get accustomed to the feeling of being sober, happy, loved, respected. Pick what you want. Alan Ballantyne says, I use this for my weight loss journey every day. And oddly enough, you've lost how much weight? Because this man's doing it. This isn't one of those situations that he's doing it. He is absolutely doing it. He is about this close to what his target is, but he has lost damn near a human being. Right? 41 keys so far. So to those of us who do not live in the land of Vegemite or any place else logical enough to use The metric system, people, that's in the ballpark of what, about 90 pounds? Somewhere in there? It's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight. You know what's crazy, though? Along that same line, and I don't want to completely put Alan's life on blast, but do you know how many other amazing things have happened in Alan's life? If all this did was get him accustomed to the fact that he was going to lose weight, but it's so much more than that. Alan is living his best life. Alan is a happy guy. Alan and I talk, if not every day, we correspond constantly. And one of the things that I'll say about Alan, which I'm so respectful of as well, is that like nobody else in the world, if he gets this far out of whack in any direction, he reaches out and tells me, right? Tells me. The last time he did it was one of the greatest feelings I've ever had as the captain of this boat, because he said, I'm just feeling in an odd way, and I wanted to reach out and tell you, because every time I do, I instantly feel better. And he said, if you don't respond to this instantly, it's not really that important. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said, because he knew that asking for the help and talking about it and articulating what was going on in his life was probably going to fix the problem whether I talked to him or not. You understand that all of these things begin to take place inside the head. How? Because Alan has conditioned himself to be successful. Alan has conditioned himself to feel good. He's conditioned himself to be happy. So if he's this far off that path, instead of going back to that, oh man, thank goodness, I'm back to feeling the way I normally do. Alan has been doing it right for so long that if he gets this far out of whack, it now feels odd. Like, remember when you stopped drinking or you stopped doing drugs and you felt so foreign because to us, high felt normal? Okay, well, Alan has been living his best life so long at this point that if he doesn't, it starts feeling like there's something wrong. That's the dream, people. That's like, air quotes, that's what normal people live like. Right? We're so accustomed to that feeling that we seek it out. Let's talk about my boss. I hate him. Right? And then I can launch onto that hate emotion. I hope every one of those anchors is for Alan Ballantyne. Because you're killing it, Alan. You're killing it. Truthfully. But this is what I'm talking about, people. Today is Friday. Right? Today is Friday the 26th. Give it 7 days. Take a half an hour every morning for the next 7 days and do this. Condition yourself to think in the moment. I'm so close to losing my sobriety on morphine because of my pain. That is the most difficult issue right there in the world, Swiss vapor. Because here's the thing. There are people for whom pain meds are a necessity. I honestly, reach out to me. I don't know your entire situation. I don't judge anybody. I don't. I mean, if you break your leg, right? If you're in that kind of pain, you need painkillers. I know that that's horrible, but there are times in this life where everyone is going to need them. I'll be honest. I do everything within my power not to. My pain level's got to be at about a 9 before I'm going to do that. But there are times you're going to get to a 9. And there's nothing that can be done about that. Greta, the other one, says, hello, beautiful family. I'm still laying low after surgery, but healing and doing fine. I love you all. This is the best place in the world. Much love and peace to all. You know what, Greta? What a cool thing to say. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Swiss Vapor, send me an email. Like, immediately. You and I link up and let's talk. And I don't always have the answers, my friend, but I sure as heck can ask the right questions. I can ask the right questions. And, you can get the right answers. But there are people in this life that are going to have to take pain medication. I'm never going to look down my nose at that. You just have to come to the decision on what it is, what level of pain is that for you, and I'm certainly not going to judge that. For me, my sobriety, I honestly would need a limb, like hanging off if I'm going to take an opiate. And people are going to go, Suboxone is an opiate. It's an agonist and antagonist. Spend about 15 minutes doing research. I promise you, we're not talking about the same thing. But I'm talking about the morphine molecule, right? That's what I'm talking about. And if you give me morphine or any derivative of it, I'm off the rails. For real. It won't stop until someone puts handcuffs on me, and that's just the reality of what that means. Plain and simple. So, Trish Killian, welcome. Don't know that I think it may have been a minute since I've seen you, Trish, or maybe I'm just not firing on all cylinders. Either way, welcome. Great to see you on the deck of the lifeboat. So, people, the challenge for the week, right? Between now and next Friday, spend a half an hour unplugging every single morning and visualize what it means to have what you want. Visualize it in the past tense. I'm successful, right? I'm thin. I'm healthy. I'm not in pain. Not, I'm gonna quit. The future, the brain doesn't really latch onto that. Why? Because we've never had something traumatic happen to us in the future. The things that really imprint on us because of traumatic things. You have a great evening, Oculi Mortis. Appreciate you being here, brother. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Those traumatic events in our lives leave imprints. When's the last time something really traumatic happened to you in the future? Silly, right? But traumatic events don't happen in the future. For that reason, it is difficult for the brain to, I think I can. Hey, I'm telling you. That's about it right there. Oculi, you're not too far off. You're really not too far off. It's just a matter, people, of getting your brain to become accustomed to winning. Getting your brain to be accustomed to living in something other than negativity, living in something other than pain, living in something other than failure. Those were the default settings. For not just you, but for all of us who are in the same boat. For all of us whose brain jumped the track. No squirreling when listening. So I hope, people, that I didn't get too mumbo jumbo on you. As I said, I have held off on this subject for a long period of time because there are people for whom this line of thought and this the idea of manifesting your success is something that a lot of people don't groove to for a lot of reasons. But it has worked really well for me, and it is definitely something that. I'm not asking you to cut a check to the lifeboat and mail it into. I'm asking you to give yourself 30 minutes a day of turning off everything and thinking about what it means to be already successful in whatever it is that you're shooting for. Get the brain accustomed to what it feels like to win, and you will begin to crave it. You will begin to seek it, and you will begin to latch on to every single thing that it takes in order to make that happen. I just saw that email hit Swiss Vape, so I will be responding to you within about 7 or 8 minutes of this live feed ending. I promise you. I'm going to go and finish a piece of pizza that I had sitting in the kitchen because I'm a little hungry, and then I'm going to be sending that over to you immediately. It's so very much what I needed. I'm thinking that it's helping me understand the addiction to stress. Absolutely. It's what we're talking about. Cortisol, right? You're addicted to cortisol, the stress hormone. There are so many things that the body does when you become stressed out. Panic attacks, like make a panic attack make sense to you any other way. We're so imprinted from the memories that we can go through all of the same things that happened to us when that event happened without it happening and without even warning, without thinking about it. That's what a panic attack is. That is the deep rooted memory from your past going, hey, how you doing? And just flipping the switch. That's exactly what you're going through. I promise you. People, do me a favor. I I know that I said we're going to be putting this stuff up in the lifeboat page over off of Facebook, and that we're going to be listing them here on the site. We're getting figured out how we're doing that right now. So when we do thoughts and prayers at the beginning of the shows, the size of the audience and the number of people who are asking for those positive thoughts and prayers literally could take the entire day. But take vitamin C to push extra cortisol out. Excellent advice. Put that in the Jacob Forrester book as well, of things that Jacob said that you should take to heart. It's a big book at this point. Big book. Jacob is a very valued asset on this boat. People, between now and tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Oh, Kathy. Please, people. Kathy is having problems with her wrist, and Mark Wages really needs prayers right now. His blood pressure is through the roof, and we're thoroughly concerned about him. He is part of the heart and soul of this boat, and I need him back. So thoughts and prayers for Mark and for Kathy's wrist. Brandon, proud of you. To each and every person here, thank you so much for coming out the day after the holiday and spending a little time with me. Between now and tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, when I put up the next video, I'd like you to reach out and try to save somebody. It's what we do. It's important. And tomorrow morning, I'd like you to take a half an hour. You're not going to regret this, people. Take a half an hour. I promise you, you will not regret it. I am the captain of this boat. I will see you tomorrow morning. God bless you all. I'm out of here. Boom.